The first use case you think about blockchain is payments, right? So that's the first thing you want to do, is show that you can secure a payment mechanism just like Visa, MasterCard, but much more secure, without middlemen, take away the fees, offers economies of scale. So the more people use it, the cheaper it gets. The way we view the future of value in the long term, 3 to 5 to 10 years, we view layer 1 blockchains will essentially become like the new republics. These will be the new mechanisms where all the value is going to proliferate to. The future, there'll be the layer 1 blockchain, there will be the mining market, there'll be the dApps, and there'll be tokens. So the lower you get in the stack, the lower risk you have, but the lower rewards. The highest risk reward will be on the layer 1 blockchain, because that's where all the value will flow up. But it's highest value, highest risk. We view layer 1 blockchains, which is Bitcoin, Syscoin, Ethereum, as court systems. They need to be combative to the external forces that we don't control, even in the software world. In the real world, like inflation, hyperinflation, wars, these systems need to be secure from that. And this is why we view Bitcoin as the gold standard for security and decentralization. What else does the world need? What else does the world cherish when you have something like Bitcoin? How can we extend that to something else where we can take advantage to build real world utility? This is where Ethereum comes in. For me, Ethereum is a gold standard for flexibility or general computation. We're trying to stick to the gold standards we know the world's going to cherish and develop on, and we put those two concepts together. And this is what Syscoin is.
What's up, people? Hotep Jesus. We are back. Another wonderful, wonderful conversation. As you all know, I'm sponsored by Syscoin, the best of Bitcoin, the best of Ethereum, using merge mining and smart contracts, ZK rollups. You guys are interested in building on blockchain technology, one of the greatest around the world. Go to hotepjesus.com/Syscoin, or go to hotepjesus.com, hit the Syscoin button, fill out the form. Somebody from Syscoin will reach back out to you shortly. I appreciate all my viewers. Once again, that is hotepjesus.com. Now, without further ado, today, our combatants, our guys here on the screen, you'll see here, top left, you'll see Michael Shellenberger. He wrote the book, Pro-Civilization, Time. Hero of the environment, best-selling author of Apocalypse Never in San Francisco. So like the crowd to welcome Michael Shellenberger. And also we have Vin Armani. You guys know him from Bitcoin Mystery School, foremost authority on cryptocurrency, author of Render Unto Caesar. Can't wait to dive into this title. I have to stop everything I've been reading and sit down and just devour this, because I know this is just full of nothing but liquid Bitcoin. Or Syscoin. So we're going to start today's conversation off. It has a very interesting backstory. I saw this thread, people tagged me in this thread where Michael said people say not all cryptocurrencies are pyramid schemes, and they might be right, but not all pyramid schemes are fraudulent. And as long as cryptocurrency facilitates crime, it's far worse than far worse than the worst pyramid scheme. And then he has here, if you guys subscribe to a Substack, that link is in the description box below. It says why cryptocurrencies are worse than pyramid schemes. So I tagged him. Somebody tagged me, and he said, "Hey, I'd love to debate this topic." That's when I nominated Cyprian, and I said, "But I don't think Michael will show up for the debate." And Michael said, "Oh, I will be there, and God damn it, if Michael ain't here."
We made it. It happens.
We made it happen. So, Michael, your premise, specifically on how they're worse than pyramid schemes, because I understand they are Ponzi schemes, in your opinion, or pyramid schemes. You can tell me why you believe they are worse than pyramid schemes, or maybe the worst pyramid scheme.
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me on, guys. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you guys. I certainly have a lot of questions. There was nothing particularly new in anything I wrote. I mean, I'm just drawing on the work by the U.S. Governmental Accountability Office, Europol, FBI, and others who have been documenting a rising amount of use of cryptocurrencies for crime, to facilitate money laundering, drug and human trafficking, other criminal activities that are, sure, they can be done with dollars, but using cryptocurrency, whether Bitcoin or some other form of cryptocurrency, is a way to facilitate those crimes. It actually, it's often been touted as one of the main benefits for it. I point out in there, I think it's also a get-rich-quick scheme, meaning a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme, in the sense that there's no real use of it beyond potentially laundering money. So the people, trying to sell cryptocurrencies are doing it because they want to make money. I mean, you might add some, kind of flowery language around how it'll be a currency one day, but it's not a currency. It's a security. There should be, the Securities and Exchange Commission should say if there's an exchange, you have to register it. If it's in the United States anyway, where we have jurisdiction, otherwise it ends up supporting criminal activities. The get-rich schemes are not necessarily illegal. I mean, we have Avon, Herbalife, other pyramid schemes, but at the end of the day, you still have a product. You have Avon, you have Herbalife, but in the case of cryptocurrencies, you're really left with nothing. I think it's pretty clear it's not a currency. A currency needs to hold its value over time. If you look at these cryptocurrencies, they don't hold their value. So Bitcoin has obviously gone from, I don't know what it is today, but I think it reached a peak of 50,000, 60,000 in November of last year. I think today it's around 17,000. Syscoin, your sponsor, reached, I believe, a price of $1 in January of this year. It's now trading at, it looks like 10 cents.
11.
11. So it doesn't keep its value like a currency needs to. It doesn't offer anything that existing currencies and digital banking don't offer. I think there's a lot of hype around it, but mostly it seems like it's being used to facilitate criminal activities. And in that sense, it's significantly worse than a pyramid scheme.
Interesting.
I have a lot of questions for you guys, but obviously we can go back and forth however you want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely want to get your questions. Cyprian, let's have you respond to that first.
Yeah, so it's actually, I think Michael's take there, as he said, there isn't a whole lot new in what Michael has said. I think that's a pretty good approximation of the mainstream not in crypto narrative. It certainly is a very good approximation of the narrative of governments, of banks, of the established financial institution, of the mainstream media, which in most cases is a pretty good heuristic. I'm going to say for most things in life, it's a pretty good heuristic to go along with whatever the establishment says. Most things in life. Now, I think the last 3 years has shown that we have to have a little bit of discernment about some of these narratives, because not always totally on point and not always people who know what they're talking about. So let's pull apart a little bit of this, right? So Michael is absolutely right that cryptocurrencies, if we say over the last 10 years, so I've been involved in Bitcoin for 10 years now, it'll be 10 years. Basically, the last month was 10 years for me since I bought my first Bitcoin. To say over the last, now it's only been around since 2009, right? So completely fair to say from 2009 to 2022, we have seen a rise in the use of cryptocurrency to facilitate crime. Well, if we had seen even one transaction take place, that would have been a rise in cryptocurrency, right? Now, what they don't tell you is that still 99.999% of crime, where there is money exchanged, it's exchanged not in cryptocurrency. There still is a lot more criminal activity that's happening through the banking system than there is happening with cryptocurrency. There's no question about that one, especially if we're talking about fraud, right? And we can, Michael wrote his blog piece and he specifically mentioned FTX. He mentioned OneCoin. Well, we know now the fraud with FTX was not even about cryptocurrency at all. It was about people sending wires through the banking system to Alameda, right, which was associated with FTX, and then Alameda then spending that and them crediting something. They never bought any cryptocurrency with it. They never used it for cryptocurrency. They just pretended like they had, and they put it in a database. No cryptocurrency involved. That fraud was completely done with the banking system. The FTX fraud was completely done with the banking system, right? So, bad example. OneCoin, completely done with the banking system. There actually wasn't a cryptocurrency. OneCoin had no cryptocurrency. They didn't even create one. Unlike BitConnect, which created a fake one, OneCoin never even had one at all. So that fraud was completely done with the banking system. So Michael says, and this is actually, I do agree with this. And this is, I think, what's important, and I think where we can get very constructive with this conversation, is that Michael says, there's no other use case for this thing besides facilitating crime. Except there is a big use case for it. The fact that it facilitates crime speaks to what the use case is. As a matter of fact, the fact that it can facilitate crime, the same type of crime that had previously or continuously or currently is funded with paper currency, speaks to exactly the use case. The first sentence of the Bitcoin white paper says a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow any two parties, would allow online payments to be sent from one party to another without going through a financial institution. In the introduction of that, Satoshi Nakamoto specifically says, what this system does is it's basically going to allow you to do via a communications channel, via the internet, what you can currently do with physical currency. So, of course, most crime is done with physical currency. Most contraband is purchased with physical currency. Most human trafficking is done with physical currency. If you have a system that allows you to have the same level of privacy and sovereignty that physical currency allows you, obviously the same people who are using physical currency are going to use this system. It's going to be useful for them. The problem that we have, the real problem that we have, and I think that this is what Michael is really keying in on when he says it's a get-rich-quick scheme. The real problem that we have, and those of us who actually build real things within this ecosystem, who are actually trying to give people more financial sovereignty, to give them the opportunity to do the same thing that they are doing with banks. For instance, to be able to send something and purchase something through the internet, commerce on the internet, without the banking intermediary. This is our biggest complaint, that the narrative has been, the purpose of this is you buy it and the number goes up. That basically this is what has permeated through the ecosystem. And this is what is being used to take advantage of people. Because people are not being given all the information. And anytime you have an information asymmetry in an economy, that's where the scammers are going to go. Anytime there's ignorant investors or people who have money who are ignorant of what it is they're investing in, you're going to get scammers. That's what we got in 2008 with the predatory lending. Those people didn't know what mortgages were. They didn't really know how loans work. They didn't really know that they shouldn't be qualified. They didn't understand what was going to happen when they were foreclosed upon. And they didn't understand, people didn't understand these rating systems. All of these funds that were purchasing the securitized assets didn't understand, like, this shouldn't be. They just trusted the ratings agencies, right? And so I think that this is where we could be productive, is to say, this is not crypto. The people who are saying get rich quick, they're not talking about crypto. FTX had nothing to do with crypto. OneCoin had nothing to do with crypto. BitClub had nothing to do with crypto.
Can you explain how that token you just mentioned has nothing to do with crypto for the people that are ignorant to that fact?
OneCoin?
That the one that you just mentioned with FTX.
So there's FTX. FTX is fraud, right? So people understand what the FTX fraud was. FTX basically took money from people, and instead of purchasing, like I would wire money to them, right? And say, I want to have this on my account so that I could purchase Bitcoin or whatever. They wouldn't actually purchase Bitcoin with that. So as custodians, they were basically doing the same as like fractional reserve. And then when there was a run on the bank, they couldn't satisfy all the liabilities that they had on paper. So they had said, yeah, you've got this money on your account, but then they went and spent the money, right? But that was all done with the banking system. That wasn't done with crypto. That was all done with the banking system, right? OneCoin was another pyramid, was a pyramid scheme, same way as BitConnect, right? Except the thing about OneCoin that's unique, and this was like the crypto queen or whatever, the NPR. I believe NPR did a big like podcast series on it, very well received, very dramatic. At the end of the day, they never even created a cryptocurrency. They just had a dashboard that was showing people that their money was going up, but it was just like a video game. They had just programmed in, oh, the number is going up on your dashboard, and it was just a number in a database, and they were just taking the money. They never even spent the time to actually create the currency. No, you couldn't send the currency from wallet to wallet. You couldn't do anything. They said, we'll have an exchange soon. That was part of the game. So for someone to say, and I mean, Michael used that as an example of crypto being a scam in his blog, which is fine. Like, I'm not slighting Michael for that, because the establishment is saying, look at this. This is why we need more regulation. This is why we need more taxation. Look at these scammers. Look what they're doing with crypto. But when you scratch below the surface, you're like, there was no crypto there. It was crypto themed. It's like me selling you the Brooklyn Bridge. And then somebody says, look at these bridges are scams. It's like, well, I never had.
What's the real? So what's authentic crypto?
Authentic crypto is, well, let's talk about let's talk about the value, right? So Michael, would you consider the Visa network to be valuable? Like, is it valuable? Incredibly, right? Almost immeasurably valuable in terms of the amount of economic activity that happens on it. Okay. Now, the Visa network is a network of banks, member banks, right? So the banks are a prerequisite. And every time the money passes through any of the hands of banks, clearinghouses, payment processors, et cetera, they take a pound of flesh. Each one of them is a custodian. So basically, your money goes to the payment processor, they take their little bit, then they send it on to this bank, they take their little bit, then they send it on to Visa, they take their little bit, and then the end merchant's bank. And at the end of the day, those are the fees that come out, right? Now, if I could offer you the same user experience that you're currently getting with Visa, but I took out all those middlemen and it went peer-to-peer, and I could genuinely offer you the same exact user experience, you couldn't tell the difference. Would that network be more or less valuable than Visa? Obviously
much more.
That's crypto. That's what Satoshi gave us, and that's real, and that's happening. I do that now. We have that happening on Saipan now.
Is that Bitcoin, or what is that, Bitcoin, or?
It's any legitimate cryptocurrency. So you can do that with Bitcoin. You can do that with Litecoin. You can do that with Dogecoin. You can do that with eCash, with Ethereum, with Solana, with Syscoin. You could do it with all of them. That's the promise. This is what the cryptographic tools are allowing us to do. And this is what the blockchain fundamentally does.
Now, when I make a purchase through Visa with my Visa card, and it comes in and it says you got, at the end of the month, you got to pay, or you pay some fee or whatever. But at the end of the month, when I pay it, I don't have to pay 3 times more than what it was. But on Bitcoin, if I had bought it in November 2021, I would have lost at least 2/3 of my value. So it doesn't seem to me like it's like Visa at all. And not only that, but I can go and use my Visa card to buy basically anything I want at almost any place in the world how many people are taking Bitcoin? Why would they? Why would they if the value is going to fluctuate by threefold over a year?
This is absolutely correct. What you've said here. These are incredibly revealing questions. So the first thing to answer to you is the native currencies. And I've said this for years, by the way, and I teach, this is what I teach, right? And this is what I write about. The native currencies are not money, will never be money, are not currency, will never be currency, right? So this, the BTC, BCH, ETH. Now in the Ethereum community, they know that that's the case, right? BTC, what has happened, I say that the best analog for this is like the settlement of the West. The BTC, that narrative about BTC being money is religious in nature. About those Satoshis that they will someday be money is religious. And it was a religious maxim that was needed in the early days, just like who were the most successful people in the West before the railroads were laid down? The Mormons. No question. They almost had their own country that encompassed the entire West, right? They were, before the railroads were laid down, the Mormons were in control of the West. Why? Because it's a harsh environment. You need to have very cohesive values about what you're going to do. The problem is when things evolve and you get more information, if you can't move beyond that, you've got a problem. So the first thing is the volatility. Correct. No merchants will accept it because of volatility. That's why we who are doing this moved away from that years ago. So here what we use is we use Bitcoin-based stablecoins. The best way to view the native currencies like a BTC, a BCH, a ETH is to view them as a commodity, to view them like oil. And ETH actually calls it properly. They call it gas, right? So if you're going to have a decentralized network, you need to have some means of accessing that network that's completely democratic. In other words, you've got to have the gas that moves it along. You've got to have the access token. And so what miners are actually doing is they're mining the required access token that I need to pay for my transaction. So my transaction has to be paid for like a stamp. Think of it kind of like a stamp, right? So that's fundamentally what this is. But what you do is you build abstractions on top. So Tether, which is the global reserve cryptocurrency, if you look at the 24-hour volume of USDT, if you sort by volume on CoinMarketCap, it has more volume than BTC and ETH combined. It is the global reserve cryptocurrency. That started in 2014. That was first minted on BTC, on the Bitcoin network. Actually, tokenized fiat is the killer app of BTC. So this is the same thing. You're absolutely right, Michael. In the same way that I wouldn't, that we don't use oil as a currency, right? We don't use oil as currency. That wouldn't make any sense. The price of oil fluctuates. Why would I buy a hamburger with oil? Why would I walk around with oil? We buy oil as a commodity. So these things are commodities. They're not securities. If
okay,
anything,
but
they're
oil,
commodities.
They're commodities. Okay, so what does the commodity do? Because oil is a primary energy source.
Yes.
I can make jewelry out of gold. Gold has industrial purposes. What are these crypto digital assets doing?
Sure.
What are they for?
Let's talk about Bitcoin, because that's what I work on, right? Ethereum's a little more obvious, but we get into smart contracts and things like that. It's a little more abstracted away. So let's talk about just Bitcoin. And I can tell you what we're doing now. So I work on a fork of Bitcoin that's called eCash, XEC. So there have been forks. They're basically schisms. Again, it's very religious in this way. That the internal battles have been all religious. Okay. So basically what it does, as I said, you can make these tokens. This is the important thing. In order to have commerce, you're going to need to have stable coins. You're going to need to have tokens that are pegged to global reserve currencies, that are pegged to unit of account. If you can't do that, basically it's economically not viable. We're not going to be able to introduce into the United States a situation where people are actually going to transact in something other than dollars. The dollar is a 500-year-old unit of account. When they made the US dollar, they didn't even try to do that. They basically just pegged it to the Spanish milled dollar. right? The US dollar was pegged to the Spanish mill dollar. They even sent Thomas Jefferson around to weigh out, a sample of all of the Spanish mill dollars that were being used. The word dollar is used in the Constitution twice. Obviously, they're not talking about the US dollar because the US didn't exist. It was already the money in the country. The dollar was already the money in the country before the US, right? So if we're going to do it in commerce, we're going to move dollars, we need to have a dollar peg. Now, there's many different ways of doing that. Probably the best way is to use reserves, right? Reserve-backed stable coins has proven to be like the most obvious one, but there's other ways. So what this does is we have a decentralized ledger. In order for me to do a transaction to you, what I do is I write onto the ledger, right? I say, I previously had this balance. Now this balance is going to go to Michael, the same way that it would with a bank, but there's no central authority. So how does the network ascertain that I have the right to make that change? It's basically two ways. Well, it's fundamentally, it ascertains it in one way, cryptographic signatures, but then we have to economically compensate those individuals who are doing the changing of the ledger. There has to be some incentive for these people to run their computers, right? Thousands of computers to run and change the ledger. So if you agree to be one of the people who's going to run your computer and change the ledger, and now it's very expensive to do at this point, the miners, your compensation for taking my transaction that I broadcast to everybody, your compensation for taking that and using it to change the ledger is a little fee that's attached. So basically, it's more than oil. It's the entire raw material. It's the hydraulic fluid, if you will. And I have to and so you get a little drop of hydraulic fluid if you're willing to do the work in a decentralized way to keep updating this ledger. That's the economic incentive for you to, because the question is, why would somebody do this? Why would I take other people's transactions and put them in? Why would I spend electricity to do that? And the answer is you're going to be compensated by every single transaction. So and
where's that money? So where's that money coming from?
So this is where mining comes in. So how proof of work network. So we're talking about Bitcoin again. How a proof of work.
I understand. Yes, I understand that part of it. I'm asking something else. In other words,
go ahead.
Yeah, like what's the where you said there's money that comes in, you get paid for, but why? I mean, why would people pay for that? It seems to me they're paying to be part of a pyramid scheme. The money is going into inflating the value of an asset that has no use beyond perhaps money laundering. So what is the use of this? What is the use of this digital asset? Let's just stick with Bitcoin. I agree. Let's stick with Bitcoin. Everybody seems to say Bitcoin is the one you want to talk about. Let's talk about Bitcoin. Yes. Why use Bitcoin? What purpose is Bitcoin serving?
Real fast. I want to hop in here. Vin, I think what happened to Mike is the same thing that happened to me, where he probably used the word Bitcoin and he was attacked by the Bitcoin cult. Mm-hmm. I think I'm smelling the same thing. He went through the same experience I went through. Go ahead, Vin.
It's fine. No, it's simple. It simplifies it to talk about Bitcoin. I mean, in other words,
absolutely.
It seems to me that I'm trying to drill down on what is the use value of this digital asset. I don't understand it. I don't think you've explained it. I haven't heard anybody really explain it other than
let's go back. So let's go back about what the use is. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Visa, because I think I did explain it, but maybe the why was missing, right? Why is Visa valuable? What does Visa allow to happen?
Well, no, but we actually went through that and we decided that Visa is valuable for all these reasons that Bitcoin is not valuable.
Oh, well, hold on. No, Visa. Well, you don't invest in Visa, right? So the first thing is we can set aside the number go up, right? I am not in the number go up cult. As a matter of fact, the true economics of this is, and I've said this publicly for years, and this is what I teach and the businesses that I build. By the way, this is how I earn my living, in cryptocurrency, right? And have for years, and by building these systems, right? So this is what I do. Not just write about, not just comment about, not just talk about, not do blogs about. Code that I maintain, protocols that I've written, businesses that I run, this is what supports me and my family and has for years, right? So the economic reality of this is that actually businesses like mine, we are more profitable the lower the price goes. Why? For the same reason that an airline is more profitable, or UPS is more profitable the lower the price of gas, the lower the price of oil. Of course they are. Because it's the thing that you need to move your product, or the thing that you need to provide your service. Right? UPS has to fill up their trucks. If the price of oil gets cut in half, they're going to make their profits shoot through the roof. If the price of oil goes up, their profits get reduced. Right? Because this is a fixed cost that you have to have. What is the value? The value is the ability to send value through a communications channel from one party to another without needing a trusted third party. Why is not needing a trusted third party important? First thing, because that's where the criminals go to immediately. Why rob a bank? Because that's where the money's at. Right? So FTX, trusted third party. These exchanges, those are trusted third parties. Second, because you've got censorship issues. This is a big one. And we didn't see it in the US in 2008 or 2009 when Satoshi brought this in, but we are certainly seeing it now. What we know now is that political speech, things that are otherwise totally legal, can get you locked out of these trusted third parties. Just happened to Kanye, to the tune of billions of dollars. Not to mention all of the people throughout the last 3 years who have had their PayPal taken away. Justin Trudeau seizing truckers and anybody who sent money to them, seizing it from the banks. Do you think that those people wouldn't have found it valuable to have been in a system where it couldn't have been seized? Were those people criminals? The thing is, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
please.
I actually have a prior question though, which is sort of, it sounds like you're saying the reason that we need Bitcoin or whatever the cryptocurrency you want to talk about is to evade government.
No, that's not
evade government.
No,
I didn't say that at all, because Bitcoin is not about evading government.
Okay, the truckers example in Canada seemed like that's what you were saying.
No, because if you had given your money with the truckers in fiat paper currency, and then you had paper currency in a safe, Justin Trudeau didn't come and kick people's doors down and take the money out of their safe. The issue that Bitcoin addresses, and that Satoshi, if you just read the white paper, there's no mention of government. It's about trusted third parties. That means banks. And the fact of the matter is that those trusted third parties are in a place right now where they are acting outside, extra governmentally. When PayPal seizes somebody's, they just had a thing, right? That was literally in their terms of service, where they said, if you have hate speech or speech that which is vaguely defined that we don't like, we're going to fine you $2,500. We're just going to take $2,500 out of your PayPal. Now, people were in an uproar, and then they removed it, and now they've put it back. And what this indicates, that's not government. PayPal's not government.
If somebody commits fraud against me using Visa or PayPal or Amazon or something, and I report it, there's at this point a pretty good chance that I'll get my money back.
Well, how did they commit fraud against you?
Well, obviously there's a lot of different ways that it could occur, but for example,
give me an example.
Somebody attempts to buy something under my name using my credit card. The credit card company alerts me, and I go, "No, I didn't do that." Mm-hmm. And then they I don't get victimized by it. I don't get the money. I get, that's their fault, the system. But it seems like in Bitcoin there would be no protection like that, or in crypto there'd be no protection.
Here's what's interesting. If you Michael, I would just really I think it would be wonderful for you to just read the first page of the Bitcoin white paper. Because actually, the problem that you just said is what Satoshi says is wrong with the system in the first place and why he created Bitcoin. That's literally the introduction of the white paper. The introduction section, which is 2 paragraphs, it would take you 2 minutes to read it. He says that what it is there are costs and payment uncertainties when dealing with trusted third parties because of the fraud that you described. The simple fact of the matter is the fraud that you described is impossible with Bitcoin. The fraud that you described is the problem that Satoshi Nakamoto solved with Bitcoin. Because because of the way that the cryptography works, I can't pretend to be you with Bitcoin. I can't guess your private key. I can't hack your private key. Unless you give me your private key, I cannot spend your Bitcoins. It's not under your name. There's no card that I can fake to use. There's no PIN pad that can be put in on it. The cryptography solves that. So the thing that you're saying, there would be no recourse with Bitcoin. The fact of the matter is it cannot, has not, and will not ever happen with Bitcoin. That is the problem that Bitcoin solves.
What if I upgrade my computer and I lose $67,000 worth of Bitcoin?
Your crypto doesn't live on your computer. If you've backed
this
up your
is
private...
a case.
Go ahead.
It's a case that actually happened. Somebody lost $67,000 of Bitcoin when he upgraded his computer.
He didn't lose $67,000 worth of Bitcoin. What happened was, as it is with many peer-to-peer things, there are many different ways. You're responsible for your own security, just like with the safe, right? If you update your computer and the code for your safe, the combination to your safe was on your computer, and you wipe your hard drive and you didn't write it down anywhere else, you're not going to be able to open your safe. What happened in the case that you're talking about is this guy used a method of securing his coins that I actually specifically in my classes advise against because of this. Hotep will probably remember this. What he did was he used a password encrypted wallet file on his machine. So he had left it to himself to remember his password and didn't write it down and didn't back it up. That's a bad move, period.
Yeah, so I mean, in other words, this guy, another guy, lost 7,500 Bitcoins in the trash, which would have been worth 280 million last year.
He didn't lose them in the trash. What he did was he didn't back up what he needed in order to restore it. The same way that it's like cash.
You should probably
You're
educate.
sovereign.
You should probably educate him really fast. I know you have a class for this that you charge, bitcoinmysteryschool.com, but you should probably educate Michael on the basics of securing your crypto.
Well, it's
because I don't think he knows. I don't think he knows what a private key is.
I guess what I'm getting at is I kind of go, the use case is starting to. I mean, in other words, I don't understand what I get out of Bitcoin that I don't get out of the traditional banking system. You say, well, the Canadian government can't freeze my banking assets if I engage in a protest. That's one example.
Yes.
That sounds like you want to have some way to evade the government having control over your finances.
Well, I mean, you're saying me, right? So the first thing is every government benign? Is the communist Chinese government benign? Do you find them to be benign? No, I'm asking you. Is the Chinese communist government a benign force? Would you trust Michael Shellenberger? Are you good to put all your money in a Chinese bank run by the Chinese Communist Party, and then for you to go ahead and let them have access to your Twitter and do as they feel about the things that you're tweeting? Would that be fine with you?
Could I function as a Chinese person in China with Bitcoin and not using the Chinese currency?
Absolutely. China is the biggest market for cryptocurrency. And there is
if they find that I'm doing that, I don't get in trouble with the government?
No. There's incredible amounts of trading in it's the most of the mining is done in China. There's huge exchanges in China.
So so the Chinese government is fine with Bitcoin being used as a replacement to their local currency?
No, it isn't that they're fine, and that's the point.
Okay.
That's the point. The point is not about wanting to evade government. The point is there are some people who want sovereignty. I'm not saying this is for everybody, right? These are
But,
the
I mean,
same
the Chinese
kinds of people.
government, just to be clear, the Chinese actually banned crypto, did it not?
No, the Chinese government rarely bans outright anything, right? They
I'm
put
seeing a
restrictions.
report from September 2021, Chinese top regulators banned crypto trading and mining, sending Bitcoin tumbling. That didn't happen, or?
No, there have been bans over and over and over again in China, right? But it's basically what they're doing is they're consolidating so that all of the activity takes place within the Chinese Communist Party. It's the same thing that's happening in the US. Okay?
So they're shutting down crypto. They're shutting down crypto in China.
But you can't, this is the thing, and this is the point, right? You can't shut down me sending you Bitcoins. This is really the point, right? And it's that there are people, it's not about evading the government. There are some places in this country where raw milk is illegal, right? Somebody wants to have raw milk. And they say, and would you say to them, well, what you really want to do is you want to evade the government? No, they want a level of sovereignty. It's not about the government. There are some things that perhaps the government shouldn't be involved in, right? Now, this is open, permissionless exchange of value. Can that be used for crime? Yes. Absolutely.
No, but I mean, in other words, if you're doing it in China, you're risking arrest, are you not?
Absolutely. But you're risking arrest doing a lot of things in China. You're risking arrest doing a lot of things in China.
Right. So but in other
different
words,
places, it's in different places, the risk profile, the value that it's providing is different, right? So here it may not be that you're concerned about the government. Here, for a lot of people, they're like, well, I got banned from PayPal. I'm banned from Patreon. I'm banned from these various different third parties. I need to accept funds to keep my business going or whatever. What are my options? And this is somebody who might pick that up, right? Another example. Another example might be, now here's another real example, because my wife is Russian, right? My wife is Russian. Her family's not associated with the government in any way. They're not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. They're impoverished, actually. And the inability for normal people, for me to just send her mother money to help pay for groceries, right? That's what happened because of the banking system. So evade the government. I'm not trying to evade the government, Michael. I'm trying to send my mother-in-law money for her heating bill in the winter in Samara, Russia. I'm trying to send her money so that she can eat. I'm trying to send her money so that she can repair the leak in the roof of her apartment. Would you say that is what I'm doing there? Is I'm a money launderer? I'm trying to evade the government? Or is that a valuable use for being able to send something to
I mean, you may not be surprised. I strongly support your ability to help your mother-in-law.
How else would I do it besides cryptocurrency?
Is it, well, I guess the question is it legal for your mother-in-law to receive cryptocurrency from you?
Yes. It's not illegal. It's not illegal for a Russian to receive money from someone in the West. It never has been.
Okay, so in other words, is it illegal for her to receive money from you in some other way?
No, it's impossible, Michael. How
so you
does
can't,
someone?
The only way you can. So in other words, you've given an example, which is Bitcoin is a way for you to help your mother-in-law in Russia, and there's no other way to help her than using Bitcoin. Is that correct?
Look, what are some other things that might be possible, right? What are some other things that might be possible? Some very convoluted set of, like, we know somebody who's a immigrant who has both a U.S. account and a Russian account, and maybe we give them money and they put it in their U.S. account and they send it via you get what I'm saying? This is like, it's going to be some workaround, because the trusted third parties, in collusion with the government, have made it so that normal people can't simply support each other because they happen to be within these borders. People who are not associated with anything politically, who did not create some kind of a war, who did not do anything like that. And there's tons of those mother-in-laws, by the way. And it's not just here, it's Iran, right? There's many, it's Cuba. There's many places where this makes sense. And the fact of the matter is that, like, now we're talking hundreds of millions of people.
So it's worthwhile. So your argument is that the use is to be able to send money to people in totalitarian systems that would not allow some other form of financial transfer. I'm just trying to understand your argument.
The use is the first sentence of the white paper, to allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Now, the applications of that include being able to send funds to somebody in a totalitarian system, but they are not limited to that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to understand what are the circumstances in which you want that. In other words, in which you would want to not have a trusted third party verify the transaction or oversee the transaction. And the example you've given me is examples of supporting your mother-in-law in Russia or supporting people in Iran, both of which I strongly support and think that's great. But it's basically the same as evading the government. It's still a use case of evading government oversight so you can transfer money. In that sense, it's the same as
I'm not trying to. It's not the government. It's not the government. It's not the government. It's not illegal for me to send cryptocurrency, for me to send Bitcoin to her mother. Her mother's not a sanctioned party. It's not illegal.
Why is it
There's
illegal?
No government involved.
Is it illegal for you to send money through Visa or your bank to your mother-in-law?
It's not that it's illegal. They shut off the capability, Michael.
Who shut it off?
Visa.
Didn't they do that under
Swift.
pressure from the U.S. government?
Of course they did.
Didn't they do that under pressure?
Of course they did.
Okay.
Did they push back at all?
Well,
did they have lobbyists? If they really wanted to push back, could they have pushed back? Of course they could have. There was no pushback.
I'm not actually debating whether or not Visa or MasterCard are good people, and I think we can all agree there are times when it's morally responsible to break the law. So I'm not making some defense.
Please don't bring that up, because so far what we have not talked about breaking the law. We're not gonna. That's a straw man. Because so far the example I just brought up is not breaking the law.
There's times when it's justified to evade governments. There's times when you're justified
evading
in
government,
evading
Michael.
government.
It's just that the capability was taken away by the trusted third parties. There is no, the trusted third parties do not allow transfers. The banks do not allow transfers between each other. SWIFT is not governmental.
Yes, although weren't those put in place in the spring in response to U.S. Treasury sanctions against Russia?
Yes, but sanctions against the banks.
Okay, so in other words, could a bank form and say we will transfer your money to Russia, or would that be shut down by the U.S. government?
They can't. They would need to form in Russia.
Yeah, but in other words, the U.S. Treasury Department would not allow it. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you can't send money to banks in Russia.
Right. So in other words, you can't
send money through the banking system. Yeah. You cannot send it into Russia through the banking system from the West.
So I understand. So in other words, the use case that you've identified for Bitcoin is to be able to transfer value and evade
from one party to another without going through a financial institution.
Yeah. Without having it restricted in the ways that it's being restricted right now by the U.S. government and the banks that do its bidding, who didn't push back, but nonetheless are basically under must obey U.S. laws.
Yes, but this is not but that's not a political. I think that when we start talking about evading government, right? That the thing that someone wants to do is evade government. Generally, in my experience, that's been wrong. Let me tell you the use case here, because I think that this one is even better, because there's no laws being like evaded. The way that it's used here, my system that's used here with my stable coin, my payment processing system, which is all peer-to-peer and regulatorily exempt. Okay, all of it. It's used in the cannabis dispensaries here. It's used in the cannabis industry. Why is it used in the cannabis industry? Well, cannabis is completely legal here. Totally legal. Everybody that's using it, they're storefront dispensaries, they're fully licensed, the whole nine. And we're in a covenant. This place here is in a covenant with the US. So even we're fine in terms of the federal. We have a high level of independence that we're able to do this. But this is true in other states as well. But because cannabis is a Schedule I drug federally, right? Which I think most people in the US think that that's silly, that it still is a Schedule I drug. But because it is, those entities that are licensed as money transmitters or as financial institutions federally, which includes all the payment processors, Visa, MasterCard, the banks, and all of that, cannot have as their clients the marijuana industry. So this has been a big issue, right? You go to most states, it's either going to be cash and they got an ATM in there, or maybe some of them have this little dinky ATM workaround type of thing where you could do it by debit, right? But for instance, Michael, you're in California, San Francisco, you've got dispensaries there. It's legal. Buying weed at a dispensary or selling it at a dispensary, if it's fully licensed, is legal. No one who's doing that is trying to evade the government, right? But since these people can't have digital payment processing and crypto is peer-to-peer, so the customer can send directly to the merchant, that's a solution for that. And here on Saipan, my system is used as the exclusive digital payment. So somebody walks in without cash, and through my system, they're able to use PayPal, credit card, all of those things at the point of sale, right?
So if marijuana is totally legal, then why can't it use a digital payment system?
Because it's not totally legal. It's not
right.
It's not totally legal. Well, listen, it's not legal at the federal level, right?
I understand.
No one purchasing weed from a dispensary and no dispensary selling weed in any of the states where it is recreationally legal is at any threat of being arrested on federal charges. It is not illegal in any way other than nominally. No one who's doing those things is doing it to try to evade the government. That is not their motivation.
They are. In other words, it's illegal at a federal level. They're not allowed to do digital processing as a consequence of the illegality at a federal level.
The third parties are not allowed to do it. Everybody involved is perfectly able to do it. The third parties who offer the payment processing are restricted by the government from doing it.
And the DEA under federal law can shut down the marijuana dispensaries in California.
They can, but
correct. So it's,
but it is not practically, pragmatically, realistically, that is not happening.
I'm not debating that. I'm just pointing out that the only use cases you're giving are when you need to evade the government. And then you keep saying, no, it's not about evading the government. Well, yes, it is. It is about evading the government.
No.
Every single case you gave is about evading governments.
The strongest,
Russia, Iran, marijuana.
The strongest cases, right? The strongest use cases are the ones where the problem is severe, frequent, and ubiquitous. This is the startup mantra. This is straight out of Silicon Valley, right? When you're looking for an application for a tool, you can use Bitcoin. I could use Bitcoin to pay for milk. Some places, some grocery stores do accept it. But the question is like, why would I pay for Bitcoin? Why would I use Bitcoin to pay for milk when I can just use my Visa card? Because they take Visa, right? So right now, and again, it's early. And it's even earlier than it should be because of the number go up narrative. Had that not been there, more people would have been building use cases. There's very, very, very few people in the last 12 years who have focused on payments. Almost everyone, and that's what we're talking about here. Almost everyone has focused on buy this because the number goes up. I will say that is missing the mark. That is sin. Absolutely.
You don't have a solution to the volatility.
No, because the volatility doesn't need a solution. I don't have a solution to oil's volatility either.
Well, the difference is that if you don't have a solution to the volatility, then it's not going to become a means of
I already told you it's not. I already told you that the native currencies are not. I don't use them for that. They can't be used for that. We knew this years ago. That's why we make stablecoin tokens on top of them.
Right. Now, our
stablecoin tokens are stable. Yeah, sure.
Let's get to stablecoins. Are stablecoins a bank?
No.
They're not.
No.
Stablecoins are not a bank of. They're not a bank of value.
No.
What are they?
So there's many different.
What are stablecoins?
So a stablecoin, the easy explanation is it is a token. So it's some token of value, and that token of value stays and tends to trade stably, usually 1-to-1 against the US dollar. That's the most common, right? So there's many different ways of making a token of value stable against another currency. It's called a peg, right? The idea of pegging a currency is nothing new. There are nations that peg. China pegs its currency to the US dollar, right? So, and many nations do. So pegs is nothing new. It's a 1-to-1 pegged currency. So the most common way of doing this is essentially you issue a deposit certificate. That's the most common way, where you say, okay, here's this token. There's $1 in the bank. If you give me $1, I'll give you 1 token. And if you bring back 1 token, I'll give you $1. This is an open window. This is what central banks do. This is how you have a reserve-backed pegged stablecoin. That's not the only way. So you can also have algorithmic stablecoin.
What's the use for a stablecoin?
The use for a stablecoin is to actually be.
What is a stablecoin for? What is it used for?
This is very strange, Michael, because I feel like we just said this, right?
Okay, so it's the same as then it's the same. In other words, there's no difference. It's just the same as a Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. Is that
no? It's not the same. It's not the same because, as you said, the problem of why you can't use the native currencies as currency is because the price fluctuates too much because of volatility. Therefore, if you want to use,
we agree there's no solution for that.
And there shouldn't be actually.
Okay,
right? There shouldn't be a solution. There should be supply and demand. Just like
okay,
oil.
so then getting back, so the use cases that you've given, then is there a use case beyond evading governments?
Yes.
And if so, what is it?
It is any transaction. It is any transaction that can be done digitally. The issue is, quite simply, that when we are looking at what are the competing, right? So what are the things that are in the running? Well, you got Visa and MasterCard. How long have those been around? How much money has been poured into building out solutions for payment solutions for them? How much money has been spent on marketing those? How much money is still spent by all of the banks to build those? And by the way, it's an absolute wonder. Dee Hock, who was the CEO emeritus of Visa, basically the inventor of Visa, his book One from Many is absolutely something that people should read. This dude's an absolute philosopher. What he came up with to build Visa is a brilliant invention, okay? It's got 30 years on Bitcoin and how much capital to build out payment networks. What else do we got? PayPal, same sort of situation. Decades on Bitcoin. Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, right? You have all of the banks. You have the banks heavily invested in all of these networks. These are legacy systems. You're not going to upset these legacy systems in 10 years. Bitcoin doesn't have a bank backing it. Bitcoin has open source developers, right? It's got people who believe in this vision. And what I tell people is it's a multi-generational project. What I'm working on now, the things that I build now, yeah, we use them in little things here. And I understand that it's if this is going to work, it'll be my daughter's children, my children's children, who will start to be able to appreciate and use this.
And how will it be used differently in the future, in your vision, than it is today?
Well, it depends on what you mean by than it is today, right? Because you don't actually know how it's being used today in the ways that we're using it, the people who are building it. One of the most important things and the most disruptive things about this technology that it provides is it provides all new economic models. This is something that I may be the only person who's talked about this for years. I've certainly written a lot about it. I sent you some articles about it, right? Things that I've written even since back in 2019. Not a lot of people are building these things out, but what it allows for is what I call non-custodial financial services. That's what we do here. And it basically allows for a whole new financial industry that's able to take fees, that's actually able to add value in all of this without taking custody of people's funds. It allows things like something that Andreas Antonopoulos called streaming money. I've explained this to many people. I think for me, this is really the vision, the beautiful vision. And this is where I actually think that the anarcho-capitalists and the communists, like this is where it settles it between the Marxists and also, the people who are on the side of Mises is, imagine you go and you pay for a beer at a bar. And imagine that when you pay for the beer, you could pay not the way that you do now, where because of the banking system that we have, the financial system that we have, and the way that things need to be set up for the banking system, you pay this one entity, it goes into the bank, and then 30 days later or 15 days later or whatever, they start paying off all the people. They pay off the vendor, and then that vendor pays off employees, and they pay their employees. What if in that payment, and this is possible, and being done, we already do it now, right? My business is we do this now. You pay the bartender, the manager, the cook, the light bill, the rent, a piece of the rent. You pay the person who delivered the beer. You pay the person who grew the barley and the hops. Everybody in your transaction that you pay, non-custodially. And this is like when we talk about owning the means of production, we talk about a situation where, like, at the end of the loop, you pay down the entire supply chain. This is something that you just absolutely cannot do with our current system. You cannot do it.
You can't pay those people?
No, I can't. I can't pay multiple entities. Visa has one destination per line item. So for instance, if I want to, let's say I want to pay all my bills in a month, right? And I want to use my bank account. That's going to be one line item for each of them. With Bitcoin, I can pay them all in one transaction at the very same time to all these different entities.
And what's preventing that future from being the reality now?
Because the way that the entire system is built, that cannot happen. The architecture it's the architecture of the system and the fact that it's a network of banks and it's not peer-to-peer. We can do. So is the barrier that? Go ahead. Is it just
more of us just need to own cryptocurrencies?
No, it's a network. It's a network. No, I'm not asking anybody to own cryptocurrencies. As a matter of fact, I'm a big advocate for don't buy cryptocurrencies. Don't buy them.
I'm just trying to understand I just don't understand. So I'm just trying to understand when you get from here, reality now, to the future you just described, what are the barriers in the way of that?
Just building, education, advocacy, finding more applications that make sense, which governments are making easier, right? As they shut. And there's going to be even more when the CBDC rolls out. The central bank digital currencies, you're going to have even more restrictions on how you can spend your funds. The more restrictions the government adds, the more desire and demand there will be for people to continue to buy the things that they had previously purchased without those restrictions. And this is. But wouldn't the government
also be able to? Yeah, but wouldn't the government be able to basically just restrict cryptocurrencies?
You can't. You can't stop somebody from sending Bitcoin from one person to another. They've never been able to do that. What they do is they restrict the trusted third parties. They restrict the exchanges, which are custodial, which aren't peer-to-peer. So they put more laws on Coinbase. If you read through the cryptocurrency laws, they're all laws about that apply to custodians. Stopping a wallet to wallet
but in other words, if the government decides to, but the government could say, we're not going to allow Bitcoin exchanges unless, for example, they're being overseen by the SEC. Could they not?
Well, they actually already do. Like you can't have a cryptocurrency exchange. There's already money transmitter laws. So they're already overseen by FinCEN. They're already overseen by the Treasury.
So then what would prevent them from shutting down those exchanges?
Nothing. And that's perfectly fine because we can do exchanges on chain, which we should be doing. I want them to shut down the exchanges. I want the custodians going.
Right. But in other words, if governments wanted to outlaw Bitcoin, what's preventing them from doing that?
Well, one, they're using it. That's the first thing. So governments are absolutely using these networks. If there's organized crime taking place, you better believe that some of that organized crime is governments. It's never not been the case. So one, they're using.
But in other words, if Justin Trudeau wants to shut down the truckers again, and that occurs, and he finds out that they're using cryptocurrencies, can't he just shut down the cryptocurrencies?
No, you can't shut down the cryptocurrencies. No, you cannot. There would be no way that Justin Trudeau could shut down the Bitcoin network. There would be no way that Justin Trudeau could prevent people who had wallets from sending crypto in between one another. There's no
could he prevent? Yeah, but could he prevent the Bitcoin from being turned into cash, into Canadian dollars?
Through a regulated exchange, he could, but I want those exchanges to go.
Right. So in other words,
through peer-to-peer exchange, no. He couldn't stop me any more than he could stop me from buying weed from you on the corner with a $20 bill.
Well, but governments can stop that.
Compared to the amount that happens compared to the amount that governments stop is pretty ridiculous. Governments stop almost none. If we do an actual percentage of number of transactions.
But you're making a point now about the efficacy of law enforcement, and I'm just pointing out that if governments wanted to prevent Bitcoin from being turned into Canadian dollars, they could do that.
No, they couldn't. They could not prevent it. They could make a law against it. Sure, they can make a law against a lot of things.
Right, and that would prevent Bitcoin from being something that could be bought and sold and turned into other sources of value.
It would certainly limit the number. It would limit the number of people who would be participating in the exchange of cryptocurrency for fiat currency. Absolutely. As somebody who advocates to people, do not buy cryptocurrency with fiat currency. I have for years said that. I tell that to all of my students. I myself do not purchase cryptocurrency with fiat currency. I would be happy to see those things happen. And I have said that I would be happy to see those things happen. And I think that people who really believe in Bitcoin would be happy to see that happen. I don't want people to be able to watch an ad with Tom Brady and then be able to take their fiat and think that they're investing in something because they heard. I want there to be barriers to entry for those people. Now,
okay, but that doesn't deal with the issue, which is just that if governments want to shut this down, they can.
But they can't, Michael. They can't shut down the actual peer-to-peer transfer. The government cannot stop me. It doesn't matter how totalitarian they are. If I have access to the internet, the government cannot stop me from sending cryptocurrency to you, no matter where you are.
I mean, the Chinese government has been able to do a pretty good job shutting down the free internet for its people. Why would it? Why is it so much? I mean,
there's so much VPN. There's so much VPN use in China. There's so much VPN. You know that. Yes, for the average Joe. And again, I'm telling you, I don't want the average Joe participating in cryptocurrency. Not right now.
I'm making a much more, much smaller point, which is that China arrested about 100 people in September for crypto-related money laundering.
Okay.
I'm not making the argument that there won't be any more Bitcoin or any more crypto in China. I'm just saying the Chinese government can say,
how many people did they arrest?
There's nothing preventing.
How many people did they arrest?
About 100.
How many have they arrested for paper currency or gold money laundering, or through the banks? Thousands upon thousands.
Yeah, but they don't arrest people for using the currency. They don't arrest people for using the Chinese currency to buy and sell goods. They are arresting people.
And they don't arrest people for using cryptocurrency to buy and sell goods. Money laundering isn't buying and selling goods.
Okay, but the Chinese. What I'm reading here is the Chinese banned the trading and making of Bitcoin.
Yes.
So in other words, and any government can just say, we're not going to tolerate this stuff. So the central promise that you can actually evade governments doesn't seem to be accurate.
The making and trading is very different here, what we're talking about, right? Those are industrial uses. Bitcoin was not created to be industrial. It was created to be a decentralized peer-to-peer system. The vision is, like, if there's an industry, the industry is a transitionary thing. Satoshi's vision always was from the beginning that everyone would be running their own Bitcoin node. And the wallet would be on their node. There wouldn't be industries. And if you're trading anything, if you're trading anything, it should be, and this is what I tell people, if you want cryptocurrency, sell goods and services for cryptocurrency. And I've lived that for a long time. That book that he held up, you can't buy that with fiat. The only way you can buy that. And that means that I've had to sacrifice a lot of sales. The only way that you could buy that is with cryptocurrency. If someone wants to hire me on a contract for their software, I will not allow them to pay me in fiat currency.
And why is that an important point? And what does it have to do with what we've been talking about?
Because if you believe that something is valuable, well, it's Barack Obama. You got to be the change you want to see in the world.
So in other words, if governments decide that there's no value to and decide to shut it down, then the value goes down.
The value goes up.
The value goes up. Yes. I've never known something that became contraband and the value went down when it became contraband. That's not economically, sorry, but that's pretty basic economics.
Yeah, it defies the laws of economics.
Yeah, so I guess the point being, I'm still stuck with basically the use value is to evade governments, but it doesn't even offer that use value particularly high. That value is not even, because you can't even really evade governments. You still get totalitarian governments that shut it down.
So far,
I mean, every use value you gave is to evade governments.
I think think we've probably reached a point where we can leave this to the audience to decide if that's what's been said. I think we can leave it to the audience to decide if what's been said is that the use case.
I have a question.
Is to evade government.
I have a question. Earlier, you were talking about Silicon Valley. You mentioned 3 things: extreme, something, something. What were those again?
Yep. Okay, so this is the rubric. I don't know if the first one. I don't know if Paul Graham and Y Combinator.
And I have a question for Michael after too.
Yeah, first one to come up with this, or whether it's just stuck. But basically, for the startup people in the audience, like, this is like the best heuristic of deciding whether or not you have a good idea for a startup. Startups are all about problems. It's all about, what you want to be working on with the startup. What makes a solution valuable is that it solves a problem that's valuable to solve. How do you know if you have a problem that's valuable to solve? It's got 3 things. You basically measure it on 3 things. 1, ubiquity. How many people have this problem? Like, how common is it that it's out there, right? If it's just one person, don't worry about it. If you're like, literally everybody I know has this problem, that's a good start, right? 2nd, frequency. How often do they have this problem? Like, for instance, how often would they need to use your service? So it's like, if it's a mattress, how often do you buy a new mattress, right? But if it's like Uber and you live in New York, how often do I need a ride? Okay, frequent, and then severe. And severe is what level of emotional stress do you get when this problem hits you? Is it high, or is it like, I don't really care, right? So if you've got a problem that everybody has it, they have it every single day, and it's really painful to them and stressful to them when they have it, and you have a solution for that, that's $1 billion company.
So we're talking about Master Focus. Try masterfocus.com for your herbal nootropics, because we meet all three of those criteria. Make sure you go to trymasterfocus.com before the sale ends this week. Michael.
And we should, I committed to an hour, and we're at about an hour and a half, and I just have to go do some things.
Thank you, man.
So
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question before you part?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. As Cyprian was explaining cryptocurrency to you, you came back to the whole avoiding government thing. Do you think there's an inherent problem with avoiding government? And I have a second question to that.
Yes, I do.
Interesting. Okay. All right. If
I think we need governments.
All governments, even a tyrannical government. You think that there's a problem with evading a tyrannical government?
I mean, I think there's circumstances where it's absolutely morally justified to do so, but I also think that you need to have a nation state to have a civilization, and civilization is essential to be able to protect life. And if you don't have a civilization, it's just chaos and violence, and it's the rule of the weak over rule of the strong over the weak. And
was Nazi Germany the rule of the strong over the weak?
Yes,
that was a government.
I didn't say that governments didn't have that situation. I said if you don't have governments, it's rule of the strong over the weak.
Where would you place the United States government on a scale of utopic to Nazi Germany?
I mean, I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Are you just
Let's
asking
say Nazi Germany
is the United States government a tyrannical government?
Not for the most part. I think it has behaved tyrannically and can still behave tyrannically, but I think having traveled around the world and lived in a bunch of different countries, it's one of the freest societies I've ever lived in by far.
At the times when the United States is behaving tyrannically, do you believe that it is morally acceptable to evade it?
I think it can be. It depends on the circumstances. Just so you know.
Who decides?
I come from a long tradition of civil disobedience Mennonite Christians who went to prison and were arrested for evading the government. So for me, evading the government, it's not like I'm some kind of goody two-shoes pro-government, just do what you're told person. That's just not who I am, and it's never been who I am.
Who gets to decide? Who gets to decide the moral? So, like Mennonites, obviously they have their own moral framework. Who gets to decide what is the appropriate moral framework, in your opinion?
I mean, I think to a large extent, at any given time, there's major social disagreements about what's moral.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's moral is being constantly argued about and debated, like we were doing today.
Yes.
So, but I'm not suggesting that that governments are always good, or that they're never tyrannical, or even that free governments are never tyrannical. Nothing like that. I'm saying that I think humans are good. Civilization is good. Civilization requires many things. And one of the things it requires is a stable currency that the nation state controls. And I am skeptical of the claims that I have not heard you make, but I've heard other people make about crypto. And when I drill down on what it seems the use cases of this technology are, what I hear is cases around evading the government. And I'm not even saying that to say that you should never evade the government, because that's not my view. I think sometimes we have a moral duty to evade the government. I think those are rare cases. And when those cases emerge, you want to eliminate the need for those cases. We should not be freezing the assets of people protesting peacefully, for example.
Agreed.
So
That happened.
Yeah. So I mean, that's where I think I'm coming from. But we could go into a lot more detail, and my two books describe a bit of what I think civilization requires. This issue of currency and digital assets is a new one for me, and I certainly learned a lot. And I appreciate you guys taking the time. I feel like I've gained a lot from the conversation.
Absolutely. One last question. It's a quick question. If I could send you something and there was a third party involved, and you and I found a way to transact or send this thing to each other without the third party, would it make sense to eliminate the third party?
It depends. It depends on who we are, what's being exchanged, and the role of the third party. There may be some circumstances where it's justifiable, and I think there's also circumstances where it's not.
Well, you and I agree that we don't need the third party. Does it make sense for us to eliminate the third party if you and I feel comfortable eliminating the third party?
It totally depends on what we're doing and who we are. If it's you and me, what are we exchanging? I mean, one of the values of a third party.
He's buying your book. Let's say he's buying your book.
Yeah.
And he wants you to mail it to him. He's buying a book from you.
I mean, in that case, because how would he? You mean through blockchain or something? Would he do it? In other words, I wouldn't want to do it through blockchain.
Just period. No, just period. If there's a third party that's there, but you guys know that you could do it without the third party, would it make sense? Would it be rational to remove the third party?
I'm selling my book as Christmas gifts, signed copies of my book.
Yeah.
Using Stripe as the interface. But
that's a third party.
Because I want the third party involved. Yes, for a variety of.
Recording stopped.
What happened? Why did you stop there? Did he leave?
I don't know. It said recording stop, and then he dipped out. I don't know what happened. Let me.
Are you still broadcasting?
We're still broadcasting. Let me fix the screen.
He might have just.
I don't know what happened to Mike. Hopefully Mike comes back.
Say goodbye.
Just to say goodbye. I'm gonna get into super chats, but really fast. I just want to say something about Michael. And this presentation we put together for you guys today. Michael provided the content we needed.
Absolutely.
To teach people the power of cryptocurrency. Michael's skepticism was valuable.
Wonderful, actually.
It was wonderful. Yes.
It was the best presented argument, let's say, against cryptocurrency, the most rational, well thought out, well-formed argument against cryptocurrency, I have to be honest, that I have ever been presented. In real time. I can tell you that right now. Absolutely. 100%. There's a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of fallacies in there, but still very, very, very well. Well, we all have fallacies in there.
I mean, it was more or less the redundancies that was troubling me, but yes, you're absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. So I know the chat, they're going crazy, like, yo, who was this guy and all of that and the third. I want to make it clear, we did not bring Michael up here to embarrass him or to attack Michael.
Nor should he feel it. Nor should he feel embarrassed, by the way. I think he presented himself very well, and there should be people watching who are like, I agree with Michael.
Yes.
There he is.
Which Michael is there's two.
This is Michael Shellenberger.
It's two of them in my lobby.
I only see one.
Yeah, because you're not modded.
No.
Because I'm the admin.
Sorry.
All good.
Yeah, you had dropped out. What's up, Mike?
Sorry, guys. My battery.
Oh, your battery died. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We were just commenting on. I said to Hotep, I'll say it again when we're here. Your how much we appreciated you being here, and I said that your argument today was by far the most well-reasoned and I think coherent argument against cryptocurrency that I have been presented in person ever. And again, this is 10 years in, right?
Very nice.
So Yes, I do. I very much do appreciate you being here. I think that it was very productive in that regard.
Yeah.
And I the hosting Hotep, and it was great meeting you guys.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Well, real quick before you go, could you answer the question?
Taking up too much of his time.
It wouldn't make sense to just eliminate the third party, you know, if you could. I understand with the whole Stripe thing, right? Like Stripe, you're concerned about fraud, but with cryptocurrency, there is no such thing as fraud. But let's say you trusted the other party, now then it would make sense to eliminate the third party, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I think it's a good example in the sense that I want to sell a bunch of books to people I don't have any trust with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm talking about in the case that we both trust each other, it would make sense to eliminate the third party.
And it would make sense because would there be lower fees?
Whatever it is, whatever
Let's
you
say
and I decide.
let's say all things being equal.
All things. Yeah, I was gonna say, all things being equal, yes, I will give you that. All things being equal, it would, if I had the security, and you had the security, and you know, and there was no fees and all the rest, then yes, that would make sense. But we don't.
And that right there, Michael, and that we don't. That statement that you just said, I agree with 100%.
Yeah.
And that's what those of us who are doing this, that's what we're building toward. We are so far away from that.
Yeah.
The place that we have to get to is all things being equal. What I want to be able to provide is I want to be able to provide a situation and be a part of, because again, I'm not going to finish it out in my lifetime, I don't think. Right? These are multi-generational projects. This is a big deal. I want there to be an opportunity for people, for my children and my children's children, to be able to look and say, you know what? I can choose this one and I don't lose anything. The same way that now you can choose Stripe over some other payment processor.
Yeah.
Or you can choose Apple Pay or Google Pay or PayPal. And that's what I'm working toward. We are far from there. And the narrative of buy this so the number goes up so you can get rich quick, that's making it harder for us.
I understand your view much better after we've talked, and I appreciate your vision, and I also think that, you know, even if you don't succeed, that let's hope it puts some pressure on the banks, because the banks are ripping us off.
Yeah.
So financial
competition.
They're terrible. So they take way too much of our money.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
I think Mike's sounding like a crypto head.
I just sound like an ordinary consumer.
I love it. I love
thanks.
it. Well, that's a great synthesis. Thank you, Michael.
I just want to say thank you for joining us. Your Skepticism provided some of the best content. This is the stuff that people are going to teach cryptocurrency on. So I appreciate you. Make sure you guys go out and get his books. His links are in the description box below. Thank you, Michael, very much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Take it easy.
No problem. Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Shellenberger. I hope I said that right.
Shellenberger. Yeah.
Shellenberger, right? Okay.
Yeah. That was great.
And
I had a blast.
And there's a specific reason why I chose Cyprian out of all people that I could have chosen, aside of the fact that he's my Bitcoin guru. My personal Bitcoin guru. Hey, Vin, what the fuck is going on here? I don't know what I'm talking about. Can you tell me what's going on? But I think that you come at things from a pragmatic approach. You come at things, for example, when I talk about Syscoin, you guys can go look. I don't come on a channel and say, hey, go buy Syscoin, you're going to get rich. I say, look, if you would like to build on this blockchain technology, there's a form on my site at HotepJesus.com. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about building on a blockchain. And the rise of a price of a coin is a feature and not the pitch.
That's right.
Because if everybody starts using this coin to transact in whatever video game they may use it, for example, the best example is World of Warcraft.
Yep.
World of Warcraft didn't have cryptocurrency, but that token was so useful in this game, people started selling it.
That's right.
Outside of the game.
It's a digital currency.
It was a digital currency. It was before its time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Robux from Roblox is the same thing for the kids.
Yes.
You know, my daughter plays Roblox. They want Robux. Kids want Robux. For Christmas, they're asking their parents to buy them Robux so they can use it in the Roblox game.
Exactly.
They're ready. That's why I say that's the generation that's ready. You know, they're ready for the digital currencies.
Yeah, they get it and don't even know that they get it. You know, so we have to be careful, you know, when we speak about these things, when we look at people and they're talking about price outside of our wonderful traders like Crypto Wendy, yo, she's a day trader. We know that. Outside of our traders, you got to watch those people that are like, yo, you know, number go up, as Cyprian says, right? You got to watch those guys because they're not teaching you the value in cryptocurrency. They're just not doing it. That's why I'm glad I had Cyprian here. Let's get into the super chats. And then I want to ask you about your book, Render Under Caesar. Chad Lemoyne, he says my favorite thing about traditional currencies is that they never lose their value. US dollar hasn't lost one iota of its value. That's why there's no such thing as inflation and everything costs what it did 200 years ago. Oh my God. Chad Lemoyne said, throw in a damn towel.
That's great.
Halawe said, since the West has a functioning, even if poorly, the permissionless nature of crypto doesn't jive with its people who think government is a good force. Yeah, so true. Matthias Badillo, he said, Vin, just open back up Bitcoin Mystery School. You know that.
Oh, it's open. It's open. January, I'm gonna reopen it. January 20th is I'm gonna reopen it. I kept it closed. People want to go. BitcoinMysterySchool.com. So there's only 20 people. Only 20 people.
You better get in fast while it still seats.
And the community. And there's a community full of people. So yeah.
I went to a cryptocurrency conference, and I saw people at a cryptocurrency conference that I actually had to explain cryptocurrency to. And I was able to do that because I was educated by Cyprian in Bitcoin Mystery School, because they were like, what is this mining thing? And I learned the concept of mining through Cyprian. And then there's some advanced level things, you know, like layer 2 solutions that I learned from Syscoin. But these people weren't even ready for that. They weren't even ready for layer 2 solutions. They didn't understand what's going on in layer 1. Okay, so
that's true for most of the industry. Most of the people who get involved, you know.
That's true for most industries, period.
That's true. That's man.
When you look at, for example, you look at someone who sells women's shoes, right? You got a guy who comes in and he sells shoes to a woman. Then you have another dude who knows the history of making shoes, the types of leathers and how they're made, et cetera, et cetera. Who do you think's going to sell more shoes when he starts talking to a woman about shoes?
Nonstop. Yeah, it's easy. That's easy.
Right? So that's just one example of how understanding your industry is going to lead to success. And what we're seeing in crypto is not a lot of people are going out there and understanding their industry. They don't understand the tech side of things. And that's a fault of mine that I had in the past, which I'm currently rectifying. I want to know how this shit works through and through. I want to be able to explain it like I'm a dev.
Good.
That way, when people ask me questions, I can whoop their ass. Or try to debate me, I can whoop their ass, right? And chat is going crazy. Render Under Caesar. Prophecy, profit, and proof of work in the dim age. When I read this, what can I expect?
So it's basically broken into the 3 parts: prophecy, profit, and proof of work. It really started when I came to the realization that Bitcoin is not money. And that actually, like, here's what's crazy about it. Like, you know, 2019 was when I first started saying that. Now I think a lot more people feel very comfortable saying that. Still, a lot of people are stuck on this, you know, it's money and it's going to be money. But that's an old narrative. But it also forced me to, and of course I've been a Bitcoin developer. I was developing for years at that time. It forced me to try to figure out like what it is. And the thing that I've been obsessed with in all of my books that I've written is value, really explorations of value. And Bitcoin, as you explore into it, really forces you to understand what is value, where does it come from, why do we value certain things? What is like, because some of it's social, it's individual, there's an objective level to it. You know, somebody would talk about like intrinsic value, all of these sorts of things. And so, I mean, you read the book. Some people, it's layered. There's some parables in there for people who are like, I don't know. Even if you just get the parables, you'll like. But very much at the same time that I was writing that book, I was sort of on the journey to my conversion to Orthodox Christianity, right? Which is thus the name change. And so also starting to see the reflections of these symbolic, let's say, theological patterns that are there as well. And Bitcoin as this reflection. So Bitcoin is really a mirror. It's this really abstract mirror for how we communicate, how we value things. The cryptography has just some interesting aspects that introduce a situation where it's not property. We don't own it. It's about knowledge. It's information. What is that? What is knowledge? What is information? Where does it exist? And so that's really what it's an exploration of that. That's what the exploration of that's what we're exploring in Render Unto Caesar.
I love that. I love that. This is my immediate read.
I think you'll enjoy it.
I know I will. I know I will.
It's definitely a Hotep book. I will say that for sure.
It's a Hotep book.
It is a Hotep book.
Oh,
There's
shit.
no doubt about that. No doubt about that.
Then I've definitely got to read this like ASAP. Oh, man.
Because you could never eliminate the reason why I say it's a Hotep book is that you can never eliminate the spiritual component from anything in your life. You know, if you're going to approach life, you got to approach it holistically. And the spiritual component has to be there because it's always playing a role, you know, in everything that you do. And if you don't get the spiritual right, it doesn't matter if you get the material right? Because you're oriented wrong. You're going to miss the mark.
Yeah, that comes back to the whole as above, so below, right? When I explain the spiritual world, I use my knowledge of science to explain it. And when I want to explain the spiritual world, I use the spirit or vice versa, right? Because they have that relationship. But you're right. I think you always have to look at the spiritual side of things. And now that you say it, I understand why it's Hotep, because that's what we do. And we look at the meta of things. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, you've watched some of the greatest content that's ever been on this channel that I'm going to take a loss on. It cost $25 to make the thumbnail and only made $28. Minus the 30% fees that YouTube's going to make. So I'm paying y'all to watch this, okay? So you better watch this shit and you better spread it around to the world. But I'm glad this happened because Mike is the skeptic mind that has been usurped, that has been conditioned by propaganda to cause confusion and misunderstanding of cryptocurrency to keep people away from the thing that will set them free. You have people wanting to be free. They cry about sovereignty and liberty. I'm talking about right-wingers here. Freedom of speech and freedom of this, freedom of that. You go, oh, so you like cryptocurrency? No, that's a scam. Oh, how do you feel about banks? Well, banks are scam too. So basically what you're telling me is you allow the banks who pay off media to tell you cryptocurrency is a scam. So basically you're a subject of the bank. You're their subject. You're doing their bidding. You're doing the work for them. And that's the thing. So when Michael was talking about governments are banning cryptocurrency, they don't have to ban cryptocurrency. All they got to do is convince you it's bad or convince enough people it's bad. If we look at cryptocurrency adoption in America, what percentage you think we're at right now?
Oh, a fraction of a 1%.
Okay.
I mean, of actual cryptocurrency, like someone who's actually like
Yes.
had a non-custodial Bitcoin wallet, not somebody bought it on Coinbase and left it there.
Right.
Somebody who has actually interacted with cryptocurrency networks,
Yeah.
a fraction of 1%.
A fraction of 1%.
Maybe 1 out of 1,000, which would be 0.1%.
Right. So you go and you
And that's generous.
right. So you go to your parents and you tell your parents, hey, I have a good mechanism for you to preserve your wealth, because that's what Bitcoin is, gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Commodity. And they go, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. You go to black folks and you say, yo, I got something that's going to preserve your wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And the powers that be tell you don't teach black people that. So you know what's going to happen with the poor? That fraction of the 1% is the new 1% that people complain about today.
That's it.
We're going to become the new 1%.
That's it. That's what people don't understand. Right? But it's not sufficient to just, first off, it's not going to be sufficient to put it on an exchange.
Right.
Right. And I also think it's interesting that one of the things, and this didn't come up, but Michael cited FTX as a scam.
Right.
But Sam Bankman-Fried was the second biggest donor to the Democrat Party after George Soros in the last election. So this is very interesting, right? So it's like, this is a guy who definitely was not trying to avoid the government. This was a guy who was actually like paying for the campaigns of the people in government. And that was the scammer. That was the person who stole people's money. Right? You haven't heard any Bitcoin devs stealing people's money, because guess what? When we agreed to build on Bitcoin, we agreed that we can't steal your money. Mm-hmm. I have no mechanism to do so. Mm-hmm. I never have your money in my possession.
Right.
I have no mechanism by which I could steal your money, and all of my code is open source that you can see everything that I'm doing. Completely transparent.
But
none of the bank's code is open source on what they're running.
Let's weigh in on the Sam Bankman-Fried thing. Oh, we need more regulation. Not only was Sam Bankman-Fried pushing for regulation, sitting in front of Congress pushing for regulation, they were fully regulated. They were the poster child for regulation, and you still got scammed. So what does that say about the power of regulation?
Well, the regulated people are the scammers.
If you're just gonna say it, then just say it, I guess.
I mean, it's never not been the case.
Right.
It's never not been the case. The regulated, like the crimes, Moody's was regulated, rating agency, right? Everybody in the 2008 thing was all regulated. They blame Bernie Madoff because he was running a Ponzi scheme, but that was peanuts compared to what all these regulated entities were. All the title companies, they were all regulated. Everybody was regulated. AIG is regulated. Everybody's regulated, right? It's like the regulations, all it means is that you had the money to buy yourself a position in the government. Mm. You're in collusion. Now you're in collusion with the guys with guns. Right? So
I look at regulation as oppression of the lower class. Mm-hmm. Regulation is the barrier that says you can't participate in this game. Mm-hmm. Only the people with either advanced knowledge or advanced bank accounts can participate in this game we've created. And because we created this game, because we participate in the game, because we know the rules, we know the loopholes, et cetera, and we know how to scam the system because, well, we have the advanced knowledge. But all the regulation is saying is that Susie Bob down the street can't play this game. Mm-hmm. Destroying your ability to climb up the ladder, right? So this is people who say, capitalism's evil, No, it's talking about is, crony capitalism, I guess you can say, where they're, working in tandem with the government, FTX. Mm-hmm. And I love that you brought up the FTX thing because, like I was telling people, I said, FTX has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. Nothing. It was, first of all, his scheme is the same thing that traditional finance runs off of. Fractional reserve. He was running the same scam that you're used to every day, except, you know, the gun makes you have to use the dollar, right? And keeps the dollar what it is, right? You try to topple it, you know, you get the Muammar Gaddafi effect, right? That's the only difference. But the FTX thing was about him taking people's money and then just buying houses and shit and whatever the fuck else.
Well, gambling it.
And gambling. He did gamble it. That he bet on Trump to lose and a whole bunch of other shit. Yeah.
I mean, everything that he did was a risky gamble. Right? Every single thing that he did, he spent this money, he gave it to the Democrats, he did all of this, and it's just like, look, this doesn't have anything to do with crypto. And people should just know, look, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. You know, that's it. W.C. Fields said you can't cheat an honest man. Iceberg Slim said you can't con an honest man. Every con relies on the greed of the mark. If you're greedy and dumb, so in Buddhism, there's 3 poisons: ignorance, greed, and anger. It says those are the three poisons in Buddhism. And it's like, if you are dumb and greedy, not even dumb, but ignorant, you just don't know anything about this particular topic. And isn't that, dude, the Steph Curry FTX commercial? That was just like fishing for people who are ignorant, because the entire thing in the commercial is, it's like, Steph Curry, he knows everything about crypto. And he's like, nah, I don't. He's like, he knows his crypto. He's like, nah. He's like, he's an expert. He's trading. He's like, I don't need to. I've got FTX. And other people were like, yeah, I don't know anything about crypto either. Let me give this guy my money. And it's like, oh no.
And
research. Who doesn't do their due diligence? Research your investments. Would you buy a house without ever having walked through the house?
Right.
Like, if you buy, one of the things that I learned a long time ago, like if you go to buy a used car, if you're not a mechanic, find a mechanic nearby, pay them, and take it to the mechanic. Or if you have a mechanic, bring them and pay them. Let them just find, maybe they don't find everything, but let them go and look and say, oh, no, that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And ask the right questions too.
You don't even know what questions to ask.
No, you don't.
You have no clue.
Right.
And, you know, it turns out that even the venture capital firms, they didn't do it either. Right. So it just goes to show you, man, that there's like a lot of ignorance, investor ignorance.
And
if you, yeah.
And with the FTX situation, hold on, let me hit the button. The other conspiracy theory is he was cognizant of it to destabilize crypto, to make people fearful of crypto. He was a pawn to make, again, going back to what we were saying before, they don't have to ban crypto, they just got to make you afraid of it. And
yeah, I mean, why not let a bad actor, right? It's like, I don't know that it's like, let's let this thing run wild, because when it falls apart, it serves our purpose also.
Right.
Right. It's like second order effects. You know, you always got to think, oh, well, what if this, and that's why it was allowed to continue. And it's like, well, this thing's going to fall apart. He's obviously doing the scam. And they're like, well, let's help to launder some money for Ukraine. Well, let's get some campaign donations out of it. Well, let's do, you know what I mean? And he's not being arrested or nothing like that. They're going to let him swing for a little, like in the wind for a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And he might get hauled there. They said Maxine Waters said she's going to haul him in front of Congress. Well, not even haul. She asked him to come.
Could you please
very
come
happy
on the
that it's coming?
13th?
Yeah.
Over Twitter. Not a letter, not a subpoena. Oh, you know, write this tweet.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But this is the world that we live in, you know? And so
did you see the Good Morning America and the New York Times interview? You know what I found funny about those? And I never did my stream on this, so I'll just say what I had to say about that. But basically what those were, they were masquerading as hardball interviews, but were technically softball interviews. Because they didn't ask the spicy questions. And I'm going to give you one spicy question they didn't ask him. Hey, Sam, why were you using communication mechanisms that delete after a certain amount of time?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't they ask him that?
Mm-hmm.
It was designed to make him look like he was, innocent negligence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like he just made mistakes. He was naive. He was a young kid who made mistakes. That's what those interviews, if you look at his majority of his questions were, answers to his questions were, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I should have known better. There were things that I didn't do that I should have thought of. But yeah, going to motive and intent, right? Like any prosecutor who's trying to establish motive and intent is going to be like, they're going to ask the exact question that you asked. Why are your communications deleting? It would be one thing to be encrypting them. Right. That would be one thing. Like, okay, maybe you want privacy, but it's like financial records, like records of transactions, of approvals that happened. What? Like, that's intentional. Right? Because you're going above and beyond at that point. It's not just like, well, we had the emails and we lost it, like our server, you know what I mean? Hillary Clinton style.
Yeah.
But this is like, no, we said use this application to where it vanishes. That tells me everything. That's it. You're done. I mean, any jury is like, yeah, he knew.
Yeah.
He knew he was doing dirt.
All right. So on the 13th, when they have this hearing, I want everybody to look out for that question.
It won't be asked.
I guarantee it won't be asked.
It won't be asked. They did this. They did those interviews to set up for when he goes in front of Congress.
Yes. Yes.
They did these to set up for this. Like they've built out, and it's such a lame, the story is so lame. The story is so like where I'm like, we're all being gaslit here.
Being gaslit.
That's what's happening. Like we're all being gaslit that it's like, well, people kept transferring in money and we didn't account for it in the books correctly. And it's like $8 billion. It's like you didn't account for $8 billion, correct? What are we talking about here? That's insanity. That's absolute insanity. Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's wild.
So some people have said, Sam Bankman-Fried's doing these interviews and every attorney in the world would advise him not to. And me, being the person that has two brain cells that function together well, I'm like, no, this is part of building a case. His dad is Professor Emeritus at Stanford Law. You mean to tell me his son's going to make a legal misstep? No way, no how. This is his dad. If you watch the New York Times, you see him like looking past the camera where somebody, it's probably his dad, is like, no. Stick to the script. Stick to the script. You don't know. You are innocent, right? Somebody's like keeping him on script. But that, putting him in front of it, was part of building his defense. Because what they can say is, if he motive, intent, the case that they're trying to say is, well, if he was malicious, he wouldn't have did the interview with Good Morning America. He wouldn't have done the interview with New York Times because that would be, unadvisable according to law. But he did that, which makes him a good person. That's his dad is playing 5D law chess. And people who think that this was a misstep have no idea how this system works and how law works. His dad is a very smart individual. He wrote the damn tax plan for Pocahontas.
Well, it's all about reasonable doubt, establishing reasonable doubt, right? In a criminal proceeding, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the key. They know that, right? So it's like, well, is there reasonable doubt? Well, they've introduced reasonable doubt. They've introduced reasonable doubt that it's like, well, here's the story. And it's basically what they're doing is they're communicating to the prosecution, this is going to be our story.
Right.
You're going to have to beat this. And when he goes in front of Congress and it's on the congressional record, I think a lot of prosecutors are going to think, I don't know if we could get this beyond a reasonable doubt. And they're going to say, we need to just do this. Watch. They're going to be like, this needs to be done civilly.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what's going to happen. And
This needs to happen civilly.
And I want everybody to take a look at your little Republican senators or whoever y'all love when they walk in there and they don't ask them about them communications getting deleted. I hope they do. And I hope I'm wrong. I want y'all to come back later on and say, they asked it, Hotep, you were wrong. I hope so.
They won't.
But when they don't, maybe you start to realize what's really going on. Lord have mercy. I actually made money today. Thank you for the guys who chipped in. I kind of wanted to have that chip on my shoulder though, that I paid for you motherfuckers and y'all just took that from me, but it's okay. Sketch Therapy, thank you for the $5. He said, keep it up. Tobias Ruck, he sent me.
Tobias, yeah.
Tobias.
What's up, man?
He said, buy some bucks, Hotep. Hey, man, I was probably using bucks before you, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the bucks. The bucks is a beautiful thing, man. Jabari Julie said, tuition paid. I catch the replay, and hopefully these shekels will let you at least break even. Thank you. Yes, I have more than breaking even now. Thank y'all. I invest in this podcast, so I don't do the thumbnails myself anymore. Chad Lemoyne, he said the banks paid for ads and lobbying to spoil the well against crypto. Then bought ads to suck you into scams so they can say, see, it's a scam, and enslave you with CBDC. Hate to see it. Oh, dirty.
And that's actually literally true because they poured venture capital money into FTX.
Right.
So what Chad is saying is like literally true. It's like factually true.
Right.
FTX bought ads to suck you into a scam. Those ads were paid for by the venture capital given to them by banks.
And then he sent money to the Democrats. And his partner sent money to the Republicans. So
that's what I'm saying.
Everybody got paid. Lauren said, tuition for the great lessons today. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Lauren. You are such a sweetheart. Make sure y'all go out and get Render Under Caesar by Cyprian, available right now.
You can go to theproofof.work.
Theproofof.work.
There you go.
And
gotta pay in cryptocurrency. Right.
I love that on ramp. Like, it's like, you want to be a part of this world, you first have to figure out how to get here.
That's right.
It's sort of like it's that it wouldn't be a mystery school if that didn't happen.
It's an initiation.
It's an initiation. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's
it's like
how
the old kung fu movies. You got to climb the mountain to get to the monastery, to learn the Shaolin.
To learn the Shaolin ways. That's how you know you know what you're doing, man. Because, I study, obviously, ancient Egypt, and you have the mystery schools in ancient Egypt. To get to the next chamber, you got to pass the test. And if you failed the test, half the time, they even let you know it was another chamber. And they say, oh, good job, you made it. And then you went on, and you were completely ignorant. Yeah, you just done. You out of the system. You know what I'm saying? So I love that.
I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another sharp conversation. Shout out to Michael Shellenberger. Shout out to Cyprian. BitcoinMysterySchool.com.
Yes, sir.
BitcoinMysterySchool.com. 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 And you know what is a great companion for BitcoinMysterySchool.com? Try Master Focus. Try MasterFocus.com. Place for herbal nootropics. Because you're going to have to sit in this classroom for at least 2 hours. And you're going to need your focus. You're going to need your concentration. There's going to be a lot of information. And this thing is going to clear up the brain fog and get you ready for this. Chad's using it. Chad was like, yo, this is giving me some sort of powers that he never had before, ability to recall things at whim. So, yes, it's 100% herbal. This is all Hotep shit. I'm not, I would never give y'all any extracts or isolates or anything like that. This is a supplement, but it's based upon 100% herbs, seeds, mushrooms, leaves, and roots.
Love it.
So this is all good for you stuff. That's trymasterfocus.com. Get it now because the sale's almost over. I'm cutting it off sometime this week. I don't know, maybe tomorrow, maybe Friday. I don't know. It depends on when I get to my computer and feel like doing it. But you better get in there ASAP because if I wake up in the wrong mood tomorrow, which I probably won't, but I might. You never know. Trymasterfocus.com. This podcast will be available in audio format. If you want to find my audio feed, you go to hotepjesus.com/podcast and you'll find out every place it'll be. And I'll put this up on Spotify, Apple. Go leave me a review. I appreciate y'all. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been another wonderful pleasure. Hotep and Bill.